I love it.
I found it interesting, like a lot of people find very difficult to kind of like quantify the benefits of the unpaid content, right? And like we have run into that a few times where people is like, well, but like, how do I know? And they have lots of objections, and we're like, oh, come on, you need to do it, right? So how do you go about approaching those people, right? That maybe, we've talked about dream customers, so obviously probably that's not gonna be your dream customer, but how do you talk about, tackling the unpaid content, all these challenges that people might have in their mind, like why should I be doing the unpaid content?
Right. So the problem that they're having isn't that they can't tie metrics to what they're doing, right? So I'm gonna disagree with you on one thing, that I don't have that problem when you're talking about a bigger company, because any company needs, and especially with the investment that I'm asking them to make in me or my agency, they have to be able to show. Right now, in my point, I'm usually talking to a marketing manager, and they have to be able to show their, CMO that they're investing in this thing that's going to show something. So there has to be some KPI, there has to be some quantifiable metrics for this thing, right? So what I usually tell people is that you're asking the wrong questions, and it's because you're putting out the wrong content that you've never seen an ROI and you don't understand how to track the things, right? So a lot of organic content is haphazard. It's regurgitated. It's something that has very little plan to it, let alone a strategy, which are two totally different things, and why I hate the word strategy, right? So it's a completely huge difference. There's a chasm between strategy and plan. But a lot of corporations have a plan, and they just start throwing things out there based on, like, on Tuesdays, we're going to talk about this, and Wednesday, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
But because they're not thinking through all the steps that they need to think through, particularly their calls to action, they have no idea where their content fits in the funnel. Right? So there are laws and there are arts and sciences, right? So the laws of marketing are irrefutable and they're quantifiable. In a funnel, there are metrics that we tie to the different stages of a funnel.
Yeah.
And just for instance, at the top of a funnel, when we're talking about a discovery client or somebody who's coming in who doesn't know about you, there are metrics we tie to that, right? Like that traffic.
Yeah.
Like, are we getting eyeballs? Engagement on social? Are we seeing, right? Like, you can go a little bit higher and talk like subscribers and likes and things, but we all know those are kind of fuzzy at this point. And like whether they actually tie into leads, it doesn't matter. But like, and then you move down further into like number of leads, quantifiable leads, and then conversion, sales, and those sorts of things as you go down. So if you don't have a strategy that says this is what we're saying and why, these are the messages that we're putting out, and the calls to action tie into this part of the funnel, then there's no way, obviously. And then, you just talk to the client and say it's not your fault.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't know what you were doing. You're just like verbally vomiting all over all of your platforms, and or regurgitating the one verbal vomit you did all over all the things in the wrong languages. So you're not going to be able to tie those things in, right? It's like throwing something at the wall and being like, hope something sticks.
I love that because we have a client that they sell houses basically, and they use content to go into a turnkey product, right? And one of the first meetings that we had with them is like, okay, how are we planning? Let's say like the CMO was there and he's like, hey, how do we connect, right? The content, how do we like put in these like dotted lines between whatever we're publishing into our sales process? And that was a discovery as we started going with it, because it was fun. It's like it was a constant. It was the only thing that we changed so they could start tracking it. And the cool thing was that they started seeing the results because the path was so clear that they were able to see, how that engagement was like moving towards the sales process. So I love that, because I think that's what a lot of people miss when they get into like these content calendars and the random things and like, let's celebrate here and let's celebrate. It's like, oh my gosh, like you're missing the point. You're missing the point of content.
Yeah. And again, I agree 100% with you. I think I expressed myself wrongly. I am, again, all about KPIs, like you need to be measuring that. I think some people have the perception of how do you measure that. I don't think they know, right? So, and I think, again, talking about going back to dream customers, that's why we focus on some people that already have their processes, right? Like they have their sales systems, all those processes, post content, they have them established, they know their metrics, they know what they're looking for. Because just like my brother was saying, like when we went and talked to this client, they had their objectives with the metrics, and then a quarter later we check them and they were like, awesome,
It's working.
we are doing great, let's keep moving forward, right? So for those listening, guys, again, don't just do a pretty content calendar. Know your metrics and have your objectives, right?